homer and made it look easy. I mean, when he's flying around the bases, it is incredible to watch. And he reaches his top speed in probably 2 to 3 steps, which is something that I think is unprecedented. I think even if you look back at guys like Billy Hamilton, I think Chandler is right there, maybe even faster than a guy like that.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Rays podcast. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Jack Sadighian, who is the AA broadcaster for the Montgomery Biscuits. And
this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
With the way the Rays season has gone thus far, Jack, we actually have been joking on this podcast, myself and my co-host, that the Biscuits may be more exciting and enjoyable to watch than the big league club. And I'm sure you can lend some insight into that. It just seems like there is so much talent, so many prospects, and so much excitement on a game-to-game basis for this team.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as far to say as we're more exciting than the big league club, but in terms of future potential, I mean, I don't know where else you would turn. It's a really loaded group right now around the All-Star break, trade deadline type of time. That's when we've got even more prospects, and we're already a really good club. So, it's a lot of fun to be in this clubhouse. It's a lot of fun to be calling games for this club that's now won. We've won 4 of the last 5 series. We won 21 of the last 30. So we have the prospects, and on top of that, we're playing really good baseball. And I think that if people are, struggling with how the Rays are doing this year, if they take a look at the farm system, take a look especially at what we got going on in Montgomery, it's a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely. And I know there's still quite a bit of season to go, but to this point, who would you consider to be the team MVP of the Biscuits? Or maybe there's multiple team MVPs. If there's one guy that has really stood out above the rest, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that one thing that probably makes it easier to name an MVP is longevity. So, we've had Carson Williams since the beginning of the season. And I think that his consistency, what he's done at the AA level, probably lends him to maybe be the Southern League MVP this year. He's definitely one of those guys that could be in the conversation as, the minor league MVP in the Rays system because his defense is so good. And then on top of that, he's backed it up with some big-time offense. He's been among the Southern League leaders in a lot of big hitting categories, homers, OPS, slugging, which when you're a shortstop, right, defense is the premium. When you're a good defender, that is already great. That probably leads to you maybe being an everyday big leaguer. But when you add the bat on top of that, now you've got something really special. And I think that's what we have with Carson Williams. And I would put maybe right next to him or right behind him, I'd put Chandler Simpson. When you're approaching triple-digit steals and you're getting on base 40% of the time, that's a difference maker. And he's special. The speed is something we haven't seen since Billy Hamilton came through about a dozen years ago when he was coming up in the Southern League. And I would put Chandler right up there next to Carson. They've both been around for a really long time. Carson was here opening day, and Chandler arrived in May. So those two, I would say, probably get the most recognition, at least from me. Probably a little biased because I've seen those guys for the majority of the year.
Right. Absolutely. And speaking on those two for a second, with Carson Williams, have you noticed any change or development in his play or approach from game one to now? I know there had been a big emphasis on cutting down his strikeout rate, and he's still a very young guy as well, but just any kind of minute details that you've seen from him of, wow, he's really upped his game a couple months into the season.
Yeah, I think one thing that boded him really well was he started the season so hot where it was like, oh my gosh, this guy is unbelievable. He's playing MVP caliber defense and he's leading the league in like every hitting category. How can you be any better than this? And then he hit a couple of months where he was a little bit slow offensively. He was slumping a little bit. And I think that was really important for his development because he learned that, one, he separated his offense and defense really well. And he learned that, hey, even if I'm slumping offensively, when I'm a shortstop, it can't affect my defense. And it didn't. He's been the best shortstop in the league defensively. He's hardly made any errors. It took him like 5 weeks into the season just to make an error in the first place. But that's something that's been really special from him. And he's learned to have the same approach regardless of having a bad day. Like if you go 0 for 8, 0 for 11 stretch, there's no need to change up a bunch of your mechanics. Now, if you're having a 2-month long slump, then maybe. But I think he's learned to be consistent in his approach every day, not tweak too many things if he's only struggling a little bit. Like if it's a mini slump, just kind of hit your way out of it, swing your way out of it. And he's done that well this year. At times when he's been slumping, he's hit a long ball. He's gotten a pair of doubles in a game, and that's helped bust him out of a little bit of a slump. So the consistency, I think, is really important. I think the offense will continue to develop, and kind of him figuring out how pitchers are attacking him and adjusting his strategy to that a little bit is something that will continue to grow as well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. A lot of Rays fans hope and maybe expect that he'll be the shortstop of the future for the big league club going forward. Chandler Simpson, a lot of scuttlebutt about him, obviously, what he's able to do with his legs. He's basically averaging a stolen base a game, which is just insane. But is there a moment or two that really stands out to you of what he's been able to do that's like, I've never seen that done before in a professional baseball game or anywhere? Just any specific moment that you're like, wow, that is amazing what he did there.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. He broke our single season stolen base record in 52 games. He got 48 bags in 52 games, which in itself is absolutely ridiculous. There probably the biggest moment this year, I think, was he had an inside the park home run where he basically grounded a ball past third. It kind of ricocheted off our bullpen because at our ballpark, the bullpens are right down the line.
Right.
So it ricocheted off the bullpen, got past the left fielder. He turns what's probably a double, triple type play into an inside the park homer and made it look easy. I mean, when he's flying around the bases, it is incredible to watch. And he reaches his top speed in probably 2 to 3 steps, which is something that I think is unprecedented. I think even if you look back at guys like Billy Hamilton, I think Chandler is right there, maybe even faster than a guy like that, because I've never seen a guy move as fast as he does. That inside the park home run stands out. There have been a few moments where he'll like hit a line drive to the right fielder and just turn it into a double. Like he'll hit what is just a routine line drive. It'll take 2 hops. It'll be in the right fielder's glove. And he's going for second. I mean, he wasn't even thinking about stopping at first. And the amount of times he's done that, I would say 6 or 7. He's maybe been thrown out one time trying to extend a double. So the speed is really, really special. There have been several moments as well where he's like grounded a ball to third, or even he had a comebacker to a pitcher and beat the throw to first. Like, what are we doing? This is unreal. And it's stuff like that where I think I've gotten a little too used to it because he's beaten out so many different plays like that where I almost expect him to just be able to get on, or if he puts a ball in play, I think there's a good chance he's going to get over to first. And a lot of the question marks around him are like, okay, how will big league defenses adjust to that? Like, is he good enough? Is he fast enough? Does he have good enough contact skills where against a big league defense, he can find his way on? And I really think that he can. I think that he's very creative in the way that he does get on base. And obviously time will tell if he's successful with that. But from what I've seen at the AA level, I truly think that as long as his speed stays up, as long as he stays healthy, it'll translate.
And I like the throwback, maybe a Juan Pierre or Luis Castillo, something in that realm going forward for him. And with Chandler Simpson, I mean, with football season going on, I'm just curious, like what his 40 time would be, or I guess in baseball terms, what his 60 time would be. Has there ever been any talk with him about, hey, if you ran a 40-yard dash, what do you think you could run it in? A 4.35, a 4.4, 4.45? Like, what is that number, I wonder?
Yeah, I asked him about it. He wouldn't give like a specific number, but he's just like, yeah, I'm fast. And
okay.
I'd love to get a time from him. Him and Victor Scott, who both tied for the minor league lead in steals last year. They grew up around each other. They knew each other really well. Apparently they have raced one-on-one. And Chandler has not disclosed the results to me. I was talking about during the Olympics. I mean, I'm not saying put him up against Olympians, but put him up against the fastest guys in the big leagues, like some of the top track athletes. I think dash to first base, a 40-yard dash, a
Mhm.
50-yard dash. Like, I think there's a decent chance that he's right in that mix or leading that group because that speed is really, really special. And he should be, he's closing in on that 100 number. He should be the guy to get to triple digit steals. He'd be the first guy to do that since 2012 when Billy Hamilton and I think the other guy was Jelino DeShields did that in
Okay.
minor league baseball in 2012. So he's going to break that number as well.
That'd be a really cool feat for sure. Now, speaking on Simpson for just a moment, because we have a regular guest on the show that mentions him seemingly every episode and hope he really becomes something special at the big league level. But
we have told you a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but we have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook.
what about the rest of his game? If you can talk about his defensive abilities and his bat to ball skills, just how much of a complete player is he, you would say?
Yeah, I think there's definitely still some development to be done. In terms of his offense, I'm really impressed with his creativity. I think I mentioned it a second ago, but he's really smart about the way he goes about getting on base. Like, he'll take advantage of, hey, the third baseman's playing up. I'm going to shoot some ground balls past him. Third baseman backs off a little bit in the 7th inning of the game. Now he lays down the bunt and he's safe at first, because if he puts any sort of decent bunt away from the pitcher far enough up that the third baseman can't get to it, then he can get on. So he takes advantage of that situation really well. I think he's good at lifting the ball enough. Like, he doesn't have that power element, but he can get the ball over the infield, and that's enough, especially when guys are playing him in like they do because they want to be able to cut him off when he runs for first. That's something that he can do well. I've seen him bunt on both sides of the infield, so that creativity is good. He'll need to continue to do that when he eventually makes the run to the big leagues, because defenses will, they'll play to that, and they'll play in. You'll get better defenders at the big league level that are going to be able to cut off that speed, and we'll see how he adjusts to that. But I think that's adjustment number one, making sure he can continue to do that. Number two, the big thing is this is his first or second full season in the outfield. He was an infielder in college. So when you're playing second base, shortstop in college, and you make that adjustment to center field, it's a completely different ball game. And center field is exactly where he should be, in my opinion. I think it was a smart move by the Rays to make him a big league center field type of prospect, but he still has to make those adjustments. I think he's getting better at his first step. A lot of times his speed will save him, but there's less room for error in major league outfield. So he'll continue to make those adjustments, learn his routes in the outfield, make sure he's communicating well with his outfielders. And I think that's the next big thing for him. I think the contact skills will continue to come along, but how does his defense develop? Does it develop enough that it can be a plus defender in center?
Understood. No, great stuff there. Now, we've talked for about 12 minutes here thus far and have yet to really mention a pitcher. As far as that side, who has really stood out to you this season and made waves, made strides, whether it's a starter, a reliever? I know there's some guys that have really, really amazing numbers this year, but who would you pinpoint as, if there's one guy that a Rays fan needs to tune into a Biscuits game and watch or hear from, who would that be?
Yeah, in terms of guys we have on our roster right now, I think Yaniel Curet is probably the best guy in terms of his stuff. Like, he's made 3 starts for us now, and he's got the easiest 96, 97 velocity I've seen in a long time. I mean, his windup is so simple. His mechanics are so simple, yet he's throwing 96, and he's got decent control of that fastball. The slider plays well off of it. I like that the Rays are profiling him as a starter. I think that he has the opportunity, and there's a reason the Rays put him on the 40-man this offseason. He has the opportunity to be a really special middle of the rotation, early of the rotation type guy. He's only 21 years old. he already looks the part, right? Like when he walks out there, he's got a presence. I think it's just continuing to develop for him and
Mm-hmm.
learn how to pitch, learn scouting, right? Like having an approach when you face batters and just continuing to develop his stuff. But he's really, really special right now. I think he's the guy on our roster that is the most special of the group. I would say of guys that we've had promoted recently, we had a really good three-headed starting rotation of Cole Wilcox, Logan Workman, and Ian Seymour. And all those guys are some of the best pitchers in the Southern League. I think that Cole's probably the most exciting in terms of like projectable prospect. I think that, he's got that mid-90s fastball. It's gotten more movement on it this year. He was giving up a little too much contact, but I think he still can be a starter. I think the Rays are still confident that he can be a back end of the rotation type guy. And as he continues to pitch and work off of that injury that he had a few years ago, he should be really exciting. There are some other bullpen arms too, but I think in terms of starters to get excited about and prospects to get excited about, I'd put Curette number one, and then I put maybe, one of those three guys that I just said in that next group.
That's good to hear because Cole Wilcox, we've been waiting for him to make an impact with the big league club since the Blake Snell deal from a couple of years ago. Now, as far as under the radar players or prospects, guys who don't get as much love and fanfare, we've talked about Simpson, Williams, some of the pitchers, just any under the radar guys that you can pinpoint that, hey, also pay attention to this name as well.
Yeah, I think this guy doesn't get enough love, and he's not under the radar to me, but Keyshawn Askew, like if you just look at his stats, he's got a 1.5 ERA. I don't care what you're doing, what level you're pitching at, that should stand out. When you have a 1.5 earned run average, that's special. And I think Askew does some things that throw hitters off. He's got a unique 3/4 delivery. He does some nice things with his slider. He's sort of turned it into like a sweeper. It's a Frisbee type of slider that I think guys have a really hard time with. Lefties cannot hit him at all. He's one of those guys that probably won't get a ton of love as like when you're a guy who comes out of the bullpen, double A and throws one inning, you're not going to get a ton of love as a major prospect at the big league level, but I think he's got something, and I'd like to see him in AAA and see what he can do at that level. I think another really consistent ball player for us that doesn't get enough prospect love as well as Tanner Murray. He's a guy who's 24, approaching 25. He's getting a little bit older. He hasn't really been healthy in his career, so that's hurt him, but he's been healthy this year, and he's been consistent. He's one of the best hitters in the league. He's gotten really unlucky this year, in my opinion, in terms of balls in play, but has still put up some good numbers. And he's really versatile, which the Rays love. He can play anywhere on the infield. He's another guy that I think is really underrated. I don't know if he's ever going to be an everyday big leaguer, but I think he's somebody that could potentially be a bench contributor for a big league team at some point.
Good to know. Great stuff. Absolutely there. Now getting to know Jack a little bit, what's kind of your game day routine when you're getting ready for a broadcast? What do you do in the lead up to the game, during the game, after the game? What's a day in the life when you have a game to call, basically?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot that goes into it for minor league broadcasters. A lot. The big joke around minor league baseball is broadcasting can be 20% of the job. Sometimes like there's so many other things that you do behind the scenes. But I would say some of the biggest things I do from a day-to-day basis is I'm help facilitate some of the roster moves for the club. So like when we make changes, I'll let minor league baseball, Major League Baseball know of those moves. Help facilitate that communication. Help provide the notes and the stats. So I'll put together a stat pack for the clubhouse, a set of notes that they can use, whether it's media or guys in the clubhouse want to take a look at that. It's basically our game notes every day. And then, a lot of times our coaching staff will look through those stats that we provide as well on top of some of their analytics. Like I'll give them more of the surface level stuff, and then they'll use some of that analytical stuff, some of that stuff that's more important to them. And that'll be, kind of what they go off of that day. Helping out on social media as well, posting the highlights and getting the word out on our players. Like a lot of the baseball stuff, me and our social guys, his name's Vince Jupiter, will collaborate on that stuff and help create posts like Chandler's race to 100 steals, or, when Trey Morgan is doing something special, because any LSU fan is tuned into what he's doing, because he's such a special player. He was such a big part of that national championship team for LSU just a couple of years ago. And, staying in tune with the community and kind of what Rays fans are looking for as well on social media. Like, we want them to get excited about our players. We obviously want to drive people to the ballpark as well.
Right.
Help sell tickets, get people in seats, and have them enjoy baseball games. And I think that advertising the players that we have, the great baseball that we have in Montgomery, along with the amenities we have around the game, is a big part in doing that. But being involved in that social side is really big. Obviously, interacting with the players and the coaching staff, whether it's doing interviews, getting interviews lined up for them with television stations, and in the media relations role, and getting their name out there in any mission that they want or any message that they want out there. We want to support that as well. And then calling the game, that's obviously the other big one too. Getting in the booth, filling out the scorebook and doing the game, which for this club is so much fun. We've been dominating the league. I really hope that, fingers crossed, this is the year we can bring a Southern League championship home. This is the 9th straight year that the Biscuits will be in the postseason, but they haven't won the championship since 2007, which is absolutely absurd with how good some of the teams that have come through are.
That's great. Now, outside of baseball, what are some of your hobbies and interests? When you've got some downtime, what are you doing with that downtime?
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, whatever you are into, guess what? eBay Motors has got you covered. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Yeah, in the off season, I do a ton of other sports. Like I love just broadcasting in general. I've been big on play-by-play and the live event side. you name it: football, softball, men's and women's lacrosse. I've been into the last couple of years. Basketball on the men's and women's side. Volleyball. I don't know if I mentioned that one, but really any sport I can get my hands on. I do a lot of that in the off season. That's a ton of fun. I'd like to get into golf more. I just started trying to get into it, but these ball players, especially, like, the number one hobby that these guys have, especially the coaching staff, on their off days, off time in the mornings, is golf. So I'd love to get into that and be a little bit more of an avid golfer, because right now it's just like me going out once every couple of months or so, and I'd like to swing the club a little bit more and get into that. But yeah, usually I try and be relatively busy in the off season doing other sports, and then if I could pick up another sport or two just to play on the side. I've kind of become country club sport guy, which I never used to be that way, but now it's like playing golf and tennis and stuff. I guess that means only in my 20s, but I guess I'm starting to get a little bit older now. And
that's great. And then as far as doing the games, traveling on the road, what has been the most enjoyable city and or ballpark to visit besides Montgomery, of course?
Yeah, I think that Birmingham's ballpark is really cool. Regions Field was built, it was only 10 years ago they built that ballpark. Being in downtown Birmingham is a lot of fun. That was a really special road trip that we got to do not that long ago. It's funny because Birmingham is only an hour, 15 minutes from us, but we only go there once a year. So that road trip feels pretty special because we only get to go there once. That is like a AAA ballpark type feel. It's the only 3-level ballpark, which is really cool. One thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention was doing the Rickwood Field game this year. That was unbelievable. We got to come in 2 days before they did the game on Fox when they did the Cardinals Giants game, and I can't even describe how amazing it was. I mean, the history in that ballpark, it felt like you were just stepping back through time, what Major League Baseball did with the walls in the outfield, the old time signs, how pristine the field looked, but they kept some of the old elements, right? Like they kept the old seating in the ballpark, which was really cool. The old press box was still there. So it didn't feel like, hey, we just rebuilt the stadium. It was just a revamped version of Rickwood Field. And
Right.
being a part of that event it was unbelievable. I had the whole, old timey get up, the whole 1950s broadcaster look. And on top of that, with Willie Mays passing away during the game and kind of the eerie feeling of that, the special moment that was in terms of being like, wow, the gravity of this situation. And you could feel it in the ballpark. I mean, there were fans that were crying in their seats. There were people talking about Willie Mays was their hero, the greatest player they had ever seen, and the impact he had on the game. And it had all started for him at Rickwood Field. So to be a part of that event, I think was really special. But I would say Birmingham is a really cool city. If I could put another one in there, Pensacola, just because it's at the beach, is a lot of fun, and players really look forward to that trip. But I would say Birmingham and that Rickwood game are two really special times we've had this year.
Very cool. And then last couple of questions here before you got a busy day ahead of you. I should have put on the banner there, broadcaster / communications director / social media manager. I think that probably fits it better. But on the Biscuits, who would you consider to be the funniest and or most charismatic player on the roster?
Oh man, before he got promoted, Bob Seymour for sure was that guy. He's like your classic first baseman, like, talks a lot, like talks people up when they're on base, leader, jokester in the clubhouse. He was really good. We've got a guy now, Sean Hunley, who is just hilarious. Like he's the guy that outside of the days he's pitching, like he's laser focused when he's pitching, but it's hilarious to watch because after that, like he'll throw on like a Tuesday or Wednesday and he knows he's done for the week. And like, he's just messing around in the clubhouse, the most relaxed guy that there could be. But I would say those two have probably stood out as pretty funny, charismatic guys. There are definitely a few others, Drew Baker, Tanner Murray, both pretty talkative guys. But the clubhouse right now in general, like I would say vibes are up. Like everybody is really enjoying it. And that is a lot easier when you're playing really good baseball like we are right now. So there's a lot more talkative guys in the clubhouse. But yeah, that group stands out.
No, that's great to hear. And then finally, Jack, for people that live in the Tampa Bay region, Tampa Bay area, how can they access or check you out? Obviously, probably can't listen to the local radio feed from our car radios or whatnot, but I'm sure there's an internet feed and some other outlets. Basically, how can people find you and your work, from miles and miles away?
Yeah, I think that one really cool thing that they've done is they've added MILB TV where you can go on, MLB app, MILB app ad, and you can click right on those games. You can watch a video stream. That'll give you the home broadcasters audio, and then it'll give you the video as well, which is really cool. So you could tune into any Rays affiliate on MILB TV, which is really cool. We air on Sports Radio 740, which obviously comes out of downtown Montgomery, but it's really easy to click the listen live feed. We always post it on our Twitter. It's on our website. You can just go under, the game tab and go to listen live, and you could tune into any game. So anybody that wants to catch a Biscuits broadcast, listen to some of these really good players, MILB TV is the route to go, or click that listen live link if you want to get the home audio, especially when the team's on the road. We much appreciate it for sure if you can't make it to the ballpark.